Hey gamers, and welcome to Paths. Here we will be teaching you how to play the PvP basics. So let's get into it. How to build your hero deck. So a hero deck is based on a class and character. So for example, a Kenta, who is a character, and a Necromancer, which is his class, is what we'll be viewing here upon setup. Now, we also have Ayena in here too, who she is also a character, and her class is a priest. We will be having many more characters and classes come into the game in the very near future, actually. But right now, we are starting with these two as they are the dueling characters. Now, hero decks may only have two of the same card name in the deck. So, for example, you can have, if you have a Sea Corpse Ravager, which is a minion, you can only have two Sea Corpse Ravagers in your deck. Now, the reason why we did it that way is because standard decks, especially for tournament play, are only 30 cards. So, that kind of gives you that right off the bat. Hero decks may only use spells that are related to the hero and hero class. So by that, a Kenta may only use Necromancer spells, and Ayena may only use Priest spells, as an example, since those are both their classes. Now, hero decks may only use items and weapons that are related to the hero and hero class. Now, the reason why we say it this way is because, yes, it's obvious that, when you see these weapons, you'll be like, oh, okay, this is for, a paladin or a priest or a necromancer. In some cases, we have weapons that can be used by multiple classes. In other cases, we will have weapons that can only be used by certain factions. So that's going to be interesting to talk more about later. So as the previous one, hero decks may only use minions that relate to the hero and hero class. So the hero, in this case, again, goes back to the faction that they may be playing. In some cases, not just class, but maybe that race specifically, kind of depending on where you're at within the game. But right now, mostly we'll focus on hero faction or hero class that the minion can be played with. And on top of that, there are neutral faction minions that may be used by any hero or faction. So those are going to be really cool to see as well. Alright, so let's set up with player 1. So here with player 1, you will need very first your 30 card Paths TCG deck. You will also need your hero, in this case a Kenta. So heroes are not shuffled into the deck. And the reason for that is strictly because they have hero abilities that you can see there. There's a 3 cost and a 4 cost, and you'll be able to use those throughout the game. Now, on top of that, heroes, when a hero dies, that's game over. So in this case, if a Kenta were to die and all 30 of his health points were to go away, I would lose, which is kind of a big deal. So keep that in mind too. And then next, you will actually need a 20-sided dice, specifically for Spirit. Now, you don't have to have 20-sided. You can use, 12 if you really want to, or 6 or 10. I prefer 20 because you will have Spirit ramp. This kind of makes it a little flexible, but in this case, with Spirit ramping, it'll actually start from 3 on turn 1. Turn 2 will be 6, and turn 3 will be 12 Spirit, capping at 12 Spirit. Now, there are cards that can add to your Spirit, but 12 on turn 3 will always replenish to 12. We'll get into that a little bit later, though. So, let's look at minion spots. So with minion spots, there are 4 minion spots that you can fill on the field. 4 is max. You can't have more than 4 minions on the field. Now this is where Paths gets really incredible, and is very different from your other trading card games. In Paths, there is room for a chest piece, a headpiece, a weapon, and 2 miscellaneous items, which could really be anything. They could be an amulet, a ring, they could be boots, gloves, shoulder armor, a cloak. It could be really anything. It could even be a potion. And all of these are attached to your hero when you're playing. On top of that, not only can you have those random gear pieces in your deck, but we actually have full gear sets that you can put into your deck and actually draw out and equip them to your hero throughout the game. So this is actually, in my opinion, very rare to see in a TCG, but we thought it would be fun. So let's continue. So let's set up player 2. So again, you need your 30 card deck, you need your hero, and you need your spirit dice. And as player 1, you have 4 spots for your minion. And also as player 1, you have your chest piece, headpiece, weapon, and 2 miscellaneous item slots, and of course your discard pile, where you will be discarding all your cards. Now there is one more kind of card, the token card. And token cards, very specific classes will have them. In this case, a Kenta will actually have token cards that are skeletons. These are not shuffled into your deck, and they are not put into play. They're just kind of put off to the side until a Kenta can summon them into play by using one of his hero abilities. So what's next? Well, each player will draw 4 cards to start, and after the cards have been drawn, each player will roll a dice to see who goes first. Whomever gets the higher number will go first. Alright, so here we are on the field, and this is more or less what your duel will look like, your duel battle. So let's go on ahead and see who's going to roll first. So first we're going to have Ayenna roll. She got a 6, and then she's going to be going against a Kenta, and he got a 12. So that means a Kenta goes first. So, knowing that Kenta is going to be going first, let's talk a little bit about gameplay phases. Now, with gameplay phases, most of them you can do really at any time within your turn. However, there is one in particular that you must do in the very beginning of your turn, and that is replenishing your spirit so you can spend that spirit, because it's brand new. Now, with that said, there is a list that we can go through here. So, step 1, replenish your spirit to the next ramp up in order, of course capping at 12. Step 2, all dots, so damage over time, and hots, healing over time, go off. They all need to be accounted for. So if a Kenta has placed a dot on a minion or on a hero, that player who's playing a Kenta needs to make sure that they are tracking those dots. Now if it's Ayenna who's healing something and she has a hot, a heal over time, that goes off, then she needs to be tracking the healing over time. Phase 3 is, of course, draw a card. 4, you can either play a minion, a spell, an item, or a weapon. 5 is the attack phase, so heroes may cast their abilities or attack, and minions may also attack if they're not asleep. Number 6, do any special card mechanics that are in play. Number 7, opponent player may dispel or defend themselves with rapids or special card mechanics. And as a player turn comes to an end, final calculation of damage done by spell cards, hero spells, or abilities, and or minions to both parties. Make sure hero spirit, hero health, and minion health pool calculations are correct for both parties. And then the player turn is over. So let's kind of look at what a turn might look like. Alrighty. So, round 1. This is what a Kenta drew. So a Kenta's hand. Kenta has a Senzai guard, Death Coach, Elven Hunting Party, Sea Corpse Ravager, and he just drew this new card called Bone Armor. So that means I have, well, Kenta has here 3 Spirit that he can choose to play with. So Kenta is actually, out of all of these, seeing how he can't really play the first 4, he'll play Bone Armor, and he'll spend 2 Spirit for it. Alright. So here we can see Bone Armor come into play. Gives himself 2 armor. So this is armor that when your hero's attacked, this armor goes away. It decays. You can think of it as like extra health, basically. So here he spends the Spirit, and now he's down to 1 Spirit for his turn. And here he will put the Bone Armor card in the discard pile. So that's not a bad first turn. Next turn, though, we're going to move to Ayena because Akenta really can't do much. He has 1 Spirit right now. He's got 2 armor, which is great, but he has nothing in his hand that he can use. And his 2 hero abilities aren't really going to help him much either at this point because he doesn't have any Spirit. So let's move into Ayena's turn. Now, we're still in round 1. And we will talk more about rounds versus turns and how they're different. But here, let's play Ayena's turn and see what happens with her. So this is Ayena's hand. She has a Hydra, the Master's Robes, a Megakoi, a Blackfin Ripper, and she just drew an Illusionist Hammer, which is pretty sweet. So let's see. She's got 3 Spirit, so these are really the only 2 that she's going to be able to play. So Megakoi for 1 Spirit, and Illusionist Hammer for 2 Spirit, and you can see that the Spirit costs are up in the top right of the card. So here is where her weapon will be placed. Illusionist Hammer. She's going to spend the Spirit, so now she's at 1 Spirit, and she will equip the Illusionist Hammer to her hero. Next is a minion, so she's going to place down a minion, which is her Megakoi. Now, the Megakoi, minions in general, when they are brought out into the playing field, they end up they have to go to sleep first. So the minion here will receive a sleep token until Ayena's next turn. Only then will that minion wake up. So in this case, the minion is asleep. However, the Illusionist Hammer has 2 on it, +2. So that adds +2 to Ayena's attack. Now, when heroes first start, they have no real damaging abilities that they can swing with. However, when you attach a weapon to a hero, they can start doing some physical damage. In this case, the Illusionist Hammer has 2. So she is going to attack Akenta with the Illusionist Hammer. You can see that played out here, which is going to hit Akenta, and Akenta has 2 armor, which is that green dice that's on him. And the Illusionist Hammer does 2 to Akenta, which means that dice is going to go away. So that spell that Akenta had used looks like it didn't do too much, but at the very least it did block that 2 damage attack. So was that useful? Most definitely. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between turns and a round. So we have to keep in mind that Spirit only replenishes to full on your next turn and ramps to the max 12 Spirit at turn 3. Again, unless, of course, you have a card in your hand that you've used or a weapon or something that states that your Spirit pool is added. There's more Spirit added to your Spirit pool. Turn means player turn, though, where round means a round that 2 players will play, starting with the first player's turn and ending the round on the second player's turn. So why is this important? Well, this is important to note because Spirit only replenishes on your turn, where a round, you may have spent some Spirit offensively to do something and set yourself up in the game. However, you may also have the option to not spend Spirit and use your cards defensively. This is a big point for paths because in paths, this basically gives the player the option to play offensively or defensively depending on their card setup and makeup of their deck and class. So knowing that, let's go on ahead and move into round 2. So, round 2, it's now Akenta's turn, and let's go on ahead and look at Akenta's hand. So, we had the Senzai Guard, Death Coach, the Elven Hunter, Sea Corpse Ravager, and a newly drawn card now, the Spirit Snatcher. So, being Akenta's turn 2, so this is his next turn, he now has 6 Spirit that has been replenished versus his first 3 that he had. Knowing this, though, Akenta can actually play quite a few of these cards, but in this case, he is going to actually play the Sea Corpse Ravager. And why is this? Well, typically you would want to save this card for when there are more minions on the field, but it's important that we play this one now to show the overall Spirit play. So, as on the other side of Ayena, the minion will be placed here next to Akenta. Also, is now asleep. So he will not wake up until Akenta's next turn. However, he has a special ability on him that says for every minion in play, he gains 1 extra health to his health pool. So in this case, we have a Mega Koi out, which is Ayena's minion, but the card states any minion in play, and he can gain to his health pool. So he will have 1 health extra added to his health pool, which is pretty cool. So here we move back into Ayena's turn, which now replenishes her Spirit to a full 6. And here we can see the Mega Koi, who is now awake. And it is her turn. So the Mega Koi's special ability is similar to something like a taunt, except for it can force minions to attack it at any time it wants as well, which is a very interesting mechanic. And although right now in PvP, it's very interesting in how it plays out, it's even more interesting how it works in PvE. And we will show that to you in a later episode. So let's look at Ayena's hand. Alright. So she still has a Hydra, Master's Robes, Blackfin Ripper, and a newly drawn card, the Wretched Mugger. So she has 6 Spirit. Now, she can play 2 of these cards, but in this case, she's starting to think that she needs to save some Spirit in the case she needs to start acting defensively In this case, she doesn't have any spell cards in her hand, but really you never know what your opponent is going to do to you. So in this case, what she decides to do is she's going to play the Master's Robes and gain herself an extra spirit to her spirit pool. So here's where the chess piece will go, which is attached to your hero. And in this case, she now has 3 spirit left. But because of the Master's Robes, it adds 1 to her spirit pool immediately. So something to note, that's actually very important when you play paths, when it comes to adding spirit to your spirit pool. Almost all spirit will be added immediately to your spirit pool whenever you play a card, unless the card says otherwise. So now, Ayenna is actually going to attack the Sea Corpse Ravager. Now, last turn she attacked Akenta, which was a good thing that she did because it removed his armor. In this case, she's going to attack the Sea Corpse Ravager because the Ravager is actually a really big threat to her right now. And because she's wielding the Illusionist's Hammer, she will not take retaliation damage. So what is retaliation damage? Well, with retaliation damage, what just happened, that minion, even though it is asleep, the Sea Corpse Ravager, technically, it can still deal damage to her. Anytime a minion or a hero attacks another sleeping minion, they can still attack back when they're hit. And that is called retaliation. And we'll talk a little bit about that more here shortly too. So in this case, she had just hit the Sea Corpse Ravager. What that does is that takes away his 1 armor, or his 1 health, I'm sorry, and adds a damage counter to him. So now he actually has 1 less health, more so from his original count. So he's lost 2 health now. But because of the Illusionist's Hammer, Ayenna does not take any retaliation damage at all, which makes this really a really great weapon card. So let's talk just a little bit more about retaliation. So again, a minion will retaliate in damage when attacked, whether they're asleep or awake. This forces the player really to become strategic and really think about what they're trying to attack, and if their setup is worth using right now or waiting. In some cases, you may just want to go all out and just start attacking, but in this situation, as the Sea Corpse Ravager was dropped, Akenta was actually rather smart about it because he knew that such a big minion would be a threat. Although really Ayenna kind of had the upper hand here with the Illusionist's Hammer. And that's exactly why she didn't take any damage. So thanks for joining us here with part 1. So this will end the playthrough of the part 1 PvP basics. But stay tuned because we will have part 2 coming soon and more advanced abilities that you can do within paths for both PvE and PvP purposes. So thanks again for joining us here on this video, and we will catch you all on the flip side.